This video is on interpretation techniques to interpret Jesus as if you are interpreting the Buddha's teachings. Barbara, this is an unsolicited video, but the questions you've asked me before I move on to Genesis, I think I see you ready to start doing some interpretation here in the Gospels that is in a different place than most people. So I kind of avoid going there. I've got videos up on interpretation of the Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on the Plain, Gospel of Thomas, things like that. But there's something going on in the Gospel and the Roman material that's I want to let you know a couple of things about it that'll help you, I think. It took me a long time to figure this out. And now that I see it, I realize, boy, I wish I knew this ahead of time. It took a long time to dig into it. Everyone else, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Okay, interpreting Jesus. I'm just going to do some things from Matthew. And I'm going to be making comparisons with possibly Buddha and Lao Tzu, both, maybe just Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching. There's some very short, easy to understand cryptic verses up here. And even though they sound different than Jesus' teaching, they're going to be teaching the same thing. They're simply carried in a different genre. It would be like saying something like, an anchored ship cannot sail. That means I'm hanging on to something I don't let go of. There's a mental lesson. I might say, an anchored ship cannot sail, saith the Lord. I've suddenly converted it into something that is religious sounding, yet it's still holding the same teaching. So that's what we're going to be looking at when we do this here. We're going to extract, regardless of how it sounds in the carrier, in the puzzle, in the encoded nugget, the parable, the allegory, the analogous verbiage, the metaphor, all of it, regardless of how it sounds, we're going to handle it all the exact same way. All right, so first of all is interpreting the cryptic verse and understanding what is or isn't. This was a tricky thing for me. There's a point where I understood that Jesus sounded like the Buddha. The measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you, really is karma, isn't it? If you identify what karma is and then you identify what Jesus says, yeah, it's cause and effect. So you realize they're both teaching the same thing, but if I keep trying to work at the Buddha or Lao Tzu, and if I read Lao Tzu verse, for example, and I've learned to take this teaching and make it about my psychology. That's how I manage this teaching. This is about my life. We join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. Okay, this is teaching us a couple of things. We are the parts of this story. We join spokes together in a wheel. This is us living life. As we live life, we join spokes to make the wheel that provides our motion through life, the cyclical motion that we're going to have in life. But it's the center hole that makes the wagon move. It is whatever is in the hub that determines how that wheel spins. So whatever is in the middle of our mind is what creates our life to continue to cycle the way it is. Once we put ourselves into it mentally and extract the analogous verbiage, or rather interpret the analogous verbiage into what it would mean up here. The next one is we shape clay into a pot, but it's the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. Once again, we become the clay pot. Oh, I am the clay pot, and as I live through life, I'm shaping my life experience into what I am. We shape clay into a pot, but it's the emptiness inside. However, as I live my life, it is what I hold inside of my life up here that holds whatever we want. So unbeknownst to me, everything that's up in my mind is what I'm holding. Do I want it? We really don't want much of it, but it's there. We don't let it go. We hammer wood for a house, but it's the inner space that makes it livable. Now we're getting into this. Now I'm the house. It's the inside of the space that makes it. What is it like inside of my house? Sit quietly by yourself. This is the measure of it. Not what you tell people. Life's fine. While inside you got all this turmoil. You're sitting there. You got worries. You got concerns. You're getting bounced awake at 3, 4 in the morning with some turmoil that's unresolved. All of that kind of stuff. That's the inner space. And we've built this house through life experience. So that's how we learn to read all of the verses, to interact with them mentally. When we get to Jesus, same exact thing. And how much of it do we interpret? If you interpret one verse, you have to interpret 100% of it. Everything has to be interpreted. Everything that Jesus says or is attributed to Jesus or that is in the rest of the book is all a lesson. It's a pathway. Now, people might suggest, no, it really happened. These places and these things are really there. And what I'm going to say is that it's just like today. If you're writing a myth and you look around and you create that template on things that you see or things that you can imagine, that's all that's happening. However, they're doing it in their local time. So it doesn't matter whether the cities are there, whether the roads are there, whether the rulers were there, whether the events happened or not. They're nevertheless taking that real life situation that they see and that's going on, that they see, that they're living within, and they are creating new versions of this teaching that fits with their time and their culture. People would look at it and go, oh, this is ours. This is really happening. I see it. I fit into this story. We look back on it now and go, it's history because those things were there. It's like, no, it isn't history because those things are there. Those things were just used as the story elements to create the story. I could easily make a simple modern example of that in my own time. There's a big river down here with a dam across it for irrigation and recreation, that sort of stuff. I could write a story that, over down in that desert area is where I have to go. Perfect, huh? I've got to cross a threshold and then go into the desert. So I do, and I write that I went across this dam, and I named the dam. And 2,000 years from now, somebody looks back on it, and the dam it's gone, long gone, but remnants are there, evidence of it is there, and they go, look, there's proof of the story. When really, I just grabbed something that was in my local culture that was there and made it a part of my updated version of a religion that is carrying or that is made on the exact same template that's been there since the beginning of time. All right, let's go to Matthew and take a look at a couple of things. I'm gonna go through and find the same stuff here. It's written in a story format, but we're gonna find that we'll just treat it the same way. Watch what I do here. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you clean the inside of the cup and the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. You blind Pharisee, first clean that which is inside of the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Okay, so this is a case of as within, so without, but also we are the story. We are the cup and the platter. But what we also don't know is that we are the Pharisee. There's a couple of, let me describe what there is here. The Pharisee is, in this material, anybody who is, God, this is why it sucks to talk about it. The Pharisee is anybody who believes the supernatural part of the story. They're the carriers, the actual Jews, Christians, Muslims. They are the ones that are in the story. They don't know it. Those are the many standing outside the narrow gate. Those are the ones that carry the ark that don't see inside. They're really a part of the story. They're carrying the story for the promise of an afterlife. In fact, I'm going to show you somewhere in the book of Luke. This is how tricky it gets. But I mean, you follow along, you'll go, okay, I see that. But you have to teach yourself to do this. All right, here we have Luke. This is actually right at the very beginning, right in the very first part. We're just beginning and what do we have going on? There's a part right here in the beginning that I'm just going to read this couple of lines. And it came to pass that while he executed the priest's office before God in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. Okay, what this is saying is that, what are we doing? This is me. This is very old stuff, okay? I am going to go before God. I'm going into my own mind to the higher awareness. And the understanding is such that when I get to the priest's office, to my mind, it's my lot to burn incense. There's something there. Incense comes up 3 times. Incense is a good thing. I'm looking for purity here. And he went into the temple of the Lord. But the whole multitude of the people, this are the masses, they were praying outside at the time without incense. They're standing outside the narrow gate, where many ways are. They're standing outside. The people are praying outside without incense. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. So here we have an altar. There's very specific. But here what we want to do is we're looking for purity at the altar of the Lord, which is in the mind, while outside there's people that are all praying without the incense. Yeah. I don't know if you see that or if you follow what I'm saying there or if that just sounds goofy. I will tell you for sure that material holds right up front the teaching that this is a mental inward trip. And that's it right there. This is telling us to turn inward with it. It really does sound goofy, doesn't it? When you read through it, you have to put yourself back in their time. Again, you either have to treat it as true, false, or go, there's a code in here. And if there's a code in here, how to recover it. That is so hard because of our time and place. But when you read a lot of other things, you see commonalities. All right, so if we went back and looked at the Matthew one again with all of that in mind, what do we have here? Woe to you, Pharisees and hypocrites, for you, all of you people that don't know what's really there, you try to make yourself sound good, but inside of you, you're full of extortion. Join me, tithe. We don't pay taxes. Join our tribe in excess. You ever talk to people that are like in this group? I've put some videos up, and I call it loquacious verbosity, where somebody will go on and write like half a book trying to explain why one little comment. Quite honestly, it always comes down to this. They claim that supernatural is true, and that the only way it could be true, then they launch off into the long dissertation, this very confusing verbiage, something that is meant to obfuscate the issue, while completely talking about the natural world and saying that if you distill it down, it comes down to this: existence, therefore God. They will say that's not it, but that's exactly what it is, because everything they say proves God comes from the physical world. Existence, therefore God. Distill it. I don't care how many words you put on. There's the excess. When we get done looking at this and we understand it, we see that there is no excess. It's an internal path that isn't a bunch of yammer, and on the outside, that's what you get. Pharisees and hypocrites. There you are. You need to resolve your inner issues. Okay, if you think you have to have God in order to know not to beat your children, maybe you've got something else inside of you that needs to be resolved. That the outside of them may also be clean also. Okay, so how fun does that sound to interpret to a Christian? This is not a popular thing, okay? But again, it's carried for what? The promise of eternity. Let's go back to that story then. So who is the Pharisee then? The Pharisee is anybody who believes the religion but doesn't know the template is there, the inward path, and doesn't take the inward path. So the Pharisee is the one that has to clean the inside of the cup, not just the outside of the cup. And that would be anybody that really you're looking for purity. I'm teaching this material. Praise God. Get on your knees. You know what? The truth is to turn inward and forgive the odd against your brother. That's what you need to do. The truth of the material is to turn inward with it. So if you're not turned inward with it, you are the Pharisee. You are the person that is carrying the material. It's written for a very specific audience. This is yours. The Tao Te Ching, they're not going to read that. A Buddhist isn't going to read, they're not going to cross, but they're going to teach the same material in their own language, in their own way. And in some cases, this is meant to, here's how you heal. You now better get to work. In the other case, it's like, this is later on. There's a lot of free time. We need something else to do. We need to control people better. We need to have a big brother. We need to have a belief. We need to have some way to manage fear. And so what emerges time goes by though, and the material it's treated in a different way. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just stick with Matthew. I want to look at a few stories here. Let's look at the one about feeding the multitude. Bread, what do we have here? Bread is said 15 times. Is that a good thing? Yep, it sure is. Let's see. Loaves. There we go. Loaves and fishes. Okay. This is why we have to have it memorized. All right. But Jesus said then, they need not depart, give them to eat. So Jesus had been preaching to the multitude. There was no food. And it was time to send them away to go eat something before they go home. But Jesus said, they don't need to depart. Give them something to eat. But they said to him, we only have 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Those are 5 and 2 there from our list. But he said, bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit on the grass. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes and broke them up. And he blessed them and gave the loaves to his disciples. And the disciples spread them out to the multitude. And they all did eat and were filled. And they took up the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Notice that there's 12 baskets full left over. The 5 and 3, we've got all of our numbers there for purity, food consumption. We're feeding a multitude. Okay, where does this one come into play? There's different stuff in this material that is kind of pretty advanced. This one you can interact with. This one is what my channel is doing right now. What I'm doing is feeding fish and loaves. This is how it works. And I don't know how. There's something in the background that's magical. If I sit here and study this stuff and stay quiet, I very slowly figure things out. I kind of lose interest in it. If I start making videos and exchanging with people, all of a sudden it's like I learn much more. Somehow in talking about it, communicating with people, opening up about it, it's like your brain gets more active, and now the awareness, as you're growing and trying to figure this stuff out, it starts happening much faster. If you just sit and don't learn, nothing happens. What this really represents the idea of is that if you're teaching the best you can, this stuff, that you keep growing into it. You'll look at something one day and go, boy, I got this figured out and this figured out. I don't know what they're doing right there. And then you just ponder it, and then it comes in later. You'll go, oh, I got it. And that's what's happening right here. I couldn't figure this one out for the longest time. But here's the thing, that as long as you are feeding, what are you feeding? You're teaching. You're teaching this material. You're seeking and knocking for righteousness. You're looking for stuff. You're getting stuff. This is the same sort of a teaching, that when you are trying to somehow convey and communicate this material, it grows much bigger. When we talk about it, we figure it out. If we don't talk about it, we don't figure it out. That's it right there. There's more left over. The more you talk about this stuff, the more you learn. It's pretty simple. All right, and actually I'll just talk about these two. I'm not going to look them up and spend the time doing it. There's one that talks about, like no physician heals his family, no philosopher teaches his village, or a combination thereof, something like that. All right, there's a point where if you are in a group of people and you're beginning to understand this, and you turn to the left or right and people aren't ready to hear it, it's not going to work. You can't teach the people that are around you. You can, however, take your knowledge and go to a new place, and people will be accepting of you. People will, if you suddenly show up saying, hey, I've got knowledge, people are going to say, who are you? We've got the same thing in Jesus' story here. Who's this person? Who do you think you are? All right, so there's a point where you kind of have to go on your own. And there's also a point with the healing process and whatnot. If you know you have an issue and I feel so good. This rape, this molestation, whatever it was, something that I was holding on to, that I had such anguish over, when I finally let it go, it feels so good that people, if they knew how good it felt, they would jump right on board. I need to tell people. That's not going to work. I have in my past tried to help people and work in situations where I'm just using myself as an example. And there's one time where I had said something. It was a work environment that eventually it somehow got spread around and hit the rumor mill. And next thing you know, there's an exchange between me and another person who's like, oh yeah, Dan liked getting in the rear end because he's got to tell everybody about it. And it was so hurtful. It was like, my God, that was not at all the case. These kind of things are going to happen. You have to know that where you talk and who you talk to has to be the right people. There will be people that will be compassionate and loving and help you heal. And there will be people that will just hate you for what you represent, because you represent the very thing that they have so much anguish and fear and hatred over, that they're going to lash out. And you have to know that. In the Roman material, it kind of it lets us know that. It's hard to extract that, but you're not going to turn to the left or right and suddenly make people around you enlightened. You're going to have to be careful. And if you're looking to talk things out with people, you got to find the right person. It can't just be anybody. So use caution, but at the same time, you have to make progress. Okay, I just wanted to say that. Interpret every bit of it. All of it is about you. All of it, honestly, This is not a fun thing for people, but the return of Christ, and the reason that it's so near and all, it's right here now, is because in the same way that everybody becomes a Buddha when they find nirvana, they seek emptiness. Everybody becomes a Christ when they find the kingdom of heaven within and become poor in spirit. Those are the same thing. But in one case, it's totally comfortable to say that. In the other case, it's you don't touch that teaching right there. So you can see the difficulty in perhaps navigating Christian material, yet here in the West, what did we grow up with? Yeah, that's our best source for figuring things out, unless you have a long time to study. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions, or if you see something that's goofy, it's really old stuff. It's going to be mentally okay to interpret. It's going to somehow be something that's stark. That whole weird stuff, the incense, how that works. On the outside, they're not burning it. Yeah, it's thick to unwrap that stuff, the time and what they're doing. At some point, you see enough in the background that you know exactly what this process is. And so when you're reading something, you go, boy, that sounds weird. But I see what they're doing right there. Oh, yeah, they're not burning incense and they're on the outside. Those are the people that are outside the narrow gate. Okay, you start seeing stuff like that. But it doesn't jump out right away. It's very old, and you have to spend time with it, pretending like you're there. And we can't get there. We can't. All right. Yeah, questions, comments, and if you want me to look at anything, I got to jump on the numbering system in Genesis. It's really going to be helpful in all of this stuff if I get that dialed in. So, all right, take care.